What's up, ladies and gentlemen? It is the King and I Life podcast, hosted by myself, Soul Toucher the Poet, and my brother, Son Soul X, in his joint. Check it out. Hit us up, www.kingandilife.com, for all our podcast info. Subscribe to whatever podcast platform that you choose. Also, hit us up, KINGANDEYE369@gmail.com. Email us your suggestions, your feedback, and all that good stuff. Tune in to us live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, Wednesdays, 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And make sure you like, subscribe, and share, because we are all over all those social media platforms. Stay tuned for the good stuff. Yeah, we out.
I agree.
Yeah. So with that being said, how do you determine your topics?
Um, Sometimes I'm inspired by sometimes I already have a list of things I want to talk about, that I've thought of, and I'm like, I want to talk about this. Sometimes I'm just inspired going to work. I'm like, yeah, I got to talk about this because this is crazy. Or even if it's sometimes I even think of jokes because I do pretend that one day I'm gonna do a stand up, and I do write jokes and stuff. So even when I'm writing certain topics or certain jokes down, I'm like, oh, you know what? This can be a topic because although it's funny, it has some type of seriousness to it, and I can kind of
Right.
mix the both because that's just what I do. So and there's times where I'm just like, I don't know what the hell I'm gonna talk about this week.
Yeah.
What is left to talk about?
Yeah. Yeah.
So sometimes it is difficult to try to figure out what a topic is going to be without sounding repetitive.
Yeah, and that's the one thing, because when I see these relationship topics come up, I'll be like, I do not. I do like we've done some,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't like a lot of them. I don't relate to because I don't
Yeah,
look that deep into them, and
right.
I don't live by those standards, and it, it's crazy.
No, I get it, but that's why Miss Ty is very easy for me to do relationship talks because we do talk about being a wife or
Mhm.
being in a relationship, with a fiance or courting and stuff like that. And those are conversations that I had to, a lot of those things I had to learn on my own. So
Right.
having a conversation with women who've gone through that
Hmm.
same situation, I enjoy that. But then when you come into red pills, blue pills, there's a gray pill, there's an alpha, there's a simp, I don't know about none of that. I know an alpha is the leader of a wolf pack, and I'm not a wolf. I don't know.
Look, in
Know what
these
I mean?
podcast streets, I knew what an alpha was. Then the beta came, and then it was another
Right.
kind, and I'm like, what the hell?
I'm
Like,
like, yo, what is going on? This is like freaking Judge Dredd right now. Beta,
right?
these are computer terms. What are we talking about?
Come on now, it's
Yeah,
too
yeah. It's
much.
too much for me. It's too much. All these double meanings with the words. Nah, I don't.
Yeah.
It's all right.
So
Alpha, maybe. I don't. Whatever.
yeah, look, it's either you're a decent man or you're not.
Right. And same with women. Either you're, a decent female or you not. Whatever you choose, listen, I'm not gonna judge you. You do whatever you want.
Right. Look, what
It's
you
not my
eat don't make
business. It's
what
not my
you eat ain't
business.
gonna make me shit.
Right.
I promise I'll be constipated on that right there.
Right. Yes.
I'm good. So are there any topics that you would absolutely stay away from?
That I would absolutely stay away from. Let's see. Well, I don't do. This is interesting. Is there any topic as if we're bashing people? I'm not for that. So if it's a
Right.
topic where we're bashing anybody, I'm just not about that life. There's no
Hmm.
reason for me to bash. I mean, I don't pay their bills, they don't pay my bills.
Right.
It's just, it doesn't make any sense to me. Um, let's see, what else would I stay away from? I really like to talk about pretty much everything as
Hmm.
long as I'm not offending
Right.
anybody, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
Because
does.
it's not my personality. So I really I don't really stay away from anything. I can do anything from like talking about like, kids growing up and stuff to like sex to like, I just talk about everything. It really doesn't bother me unless we're like trying to offend people. Then I'm just like, yeah, I'm
Mhm.
not for that. I'm not gonna do that.
Yeah. I when we first started, I was open to everything, but now that we've gone on, the one the three things that I will not have deep discussions about is
Mhm.
politics, religion, and black issues.
Yeah,
Um,
those are all those all call for fights.
you, it only for me. I don't want to talk about those deeply. I'll talk about them surface or in a fun manner. I don't want to
Right.
talk on deeply because I found that a lot of people out there, they either have no idea what they're talking about, they're speaking on other talking points,
Yeah.
or they're too ingrained in a certain space and they're unreasonable to have a conversation with.
Yeah.
And it's like you're trying to have an adult or open dialogue with someone who's so hardline on something, and it's like they're so hardline that they think all of this other stuff does not factor into the conversation
Right.
overall.
Yeah. It's like, what does my husband always say? Oh, a rational conversation with an irrational person.
Right.
And those three topics you mentioned calls for a lot of irrational people at times because they get so passionate because
Mhm.
everybody's always right. There can never be like
Right.
a collective, like, okay, you know what? I understand where you're coming from. Hear me out. Okay, we agree to disagree, but we're all good. It's always like, oh, you just hate this and you hate that, and it's just like that's really not what I'm saying. But
Right.
okay, and
It's
because
not.
and also because those three topics, people want you to, I guess, follow their lead and be on their side so much. And you're like, well, I can prove it to you, and it turned into like, well, you can't change my. I'm my own person. Why are you trying to change my mind and make me
Right.
think something that doesn't make sense to me? And that's typically what happens with those three topics.
Yeah, and then at the end of the day, it's like you really didn't prove anything
At
to me
all.
except what I've been hearing you and so many other people say.
Say,
But if you slide your thinking to the side a little bit, you will realize that what you're saying kind of conflicts with reality, and you
right.
just don't want to accept reality.
Right. And at that point, there's nothing I can do.
Right. It's like, you know what? I'm done with these
I'm
conversations.
finished. We're through.
Oh man. Um, so jumping back to panels right quick.
Mhm.
What is the longest you've been on a panel?
Lord, I'm going to kill Miss Pie because it was like maybe like my third panel. Was it like maybe like my third or my fourth? I was doing them almost every Friday because I was
Uh-huh.
still working from home. Like my schedule was still very flexible. And there was a panel where we were on for like 4 hours. Then someone came on, and this is when the late Kevin Samuels was still alive, still with us. And they said, Kevin Samuels just said this: you need to do a reaction because you'll be the first one. So let's go. And I was just like, what does this mean? Like, what do you mean a reaction? Like right now? Because my reaction is to go to bed. And she's like, no, come on. It'll only be like an hour, whatever, whatever. We started at 8 p.m. I went to bed Saturday at 4 a.m.
Mm.
And I texted Miss Ty the next day and I said, I don't think I can do this ever again. I was like, girl, my mouth was so dry. My throat is hoarse. Like, I've never
Oh
done
my
so much talking in my life,
goodness.
not even at work. I cannot do it. And she was just laughing the whole time. She was like, girl, I know it was such a long night and da 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 da. But I just love her. So I was just like,
Yeah.
girl, I can't do this no more. Like 7 hour girl, that's a whole shift. I did a whole shift.
Right? Look, let me tell you, I think I was on with her one time for like 9 hours. Um,
Yeah.
I used when I first started, it's like because when Kaya was on, um,
Oh,
like
right.
I would see her hop on at 7:30
Mm-hmm.
and I go do something, and then it'd be 11 o'clock, and I'd be like, "Damn, they still up. What are they talking about?" Then I pop in, and then the conversation's going, and I'm like, "I'm going to bed." Then I would wake up in the middle of the night and couldn't fall right back to sleep, and I'd be like, "It's 2 o'clock. Why are they still on?"
Still going.
Let
It
me
was
tell you
almost like surreal, right? Like you were in a different world. Because I would be
that.
like, they're still
Yeah.
going. Let me pop in. Hey, she's like, hey girl, come on up. I'm like, it's 3:30 in the morning. I just got up to pee. I can't pop
Let me tell you,
back up.
it was during our telework time, but
hmm
with my office, one of us had to go to one of the buildings to, put out masks and stuff like this.
Okay, right.
So her thing started at 7 o'clock that night. I got up. My alarm goes off at 4:45 in the morning.
hmm
I leave out the house at 5:20, and I happen to be driving to work, and I happen to hop on while I was driving. I get to work at 7 o'clock.
And
I
there she
leave work at 11 o'clock.
was.
They were still on,
Yep.
and I got home by like 1:30. It was still on. I was like, "There's no way."
I don't know how she does it or how she did it because I haven't seen her on in a long time.
Yeah, I
I
haven't
don't know
either.
how. I don't know how. And I love it because she used to start on her own by herself. She was like, okay,
Yeah,
now I'm going to let people up. She had her own little routine, her thing. And I'm just like, wow, it'll be like, and then at the end, you'll be like, oh, you can catch this 12-hour stream now. And I'm like,
man. Do you
12
know
hours.
it's hard enough to stick through like a 30-minute stream?
Agreed. I agree with you.
Yeah.
It's just so long for me. And at one point, like I start feeling bad because I'm just like, I hope I seem like I'm invested because you do start feeling a little tired
Right.
and you're like, okay, I don't know what else can we do, what else is left. So I'm just like, I hope I look like I'm having fun on camera.
Right. I
And I'm
hope I,
like,
add value to the stream and stuff like. But
right.
in your head, you be like, "Yo, why are we
Yes.
still on
I'm
here?"
like, and sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, or like if I rewatch it, I'm like, oh, I was getting tired because I'm blinking too much. I'm trying to keep the eyes saturated.
And then a fresh person comes in, then you get a little burst of energy. You be like, "Yo, I said I was going to bed."
Right. Like, why am I up right now? And that's what happens all the time. I'm just like, okay, somebody else is about to come up. I'm like, oh, this is about to be good. Oh, we're about to get into it. And then as soon
Yeah.
as they come up for like the first 20 minutes, you're like, yeah, that 21st minute hit, and you're like, yeah, wait, I remembered I said
Mm,
I was leaving because
yeah.
I got work in an hour. It's
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Yeah. Oh man. So we got a few more questions, like three or four more questions.
no problem.
I know you've been hit with COVID. It hit me too in March, and it just hit me a couple weeks ago. Um,
Again?
yeah. I,
Oh, don't say
um,
that.
so other than that, have you ever been to the point where you just were forced to take a break from podcasting?
Um, yes. And that's typically when the burnout hit because I
Mhm.
was so excited, popping out episodes every week, keeping up with like content engagement on social media because that's the problem too. Like you can't just put out an episode and be like, "All right, I did it. Episode's out." You have to promote yourself.
Yeah.
You have to value yourself.
Yes.
You have to let others see your value. So it's just like a lot of engagement, a lot of answering people, a lot of liking comments, a lot of going through other people's stuff too,
Mhm.
because you got to show love back and make sure that
Right.
they stay relevant because that's what happens on Instagram. You can get lost real quick. So
Real
I'm just
quick.
like, we got to help each other out. So I'm out there liking stuff, making comments, answering questions, answering DMs. I was just like, I need a break. I need at least 2 weeks of not having to sit down and edit, not having to sit down and write notes, not having to sit down and like anything. Like
Right.
I don't
Yes.
I don't want to be here.
Yes, I feel you.
So there was a point, and I want to say it was mostly like once I had already hit the year. I
Mhm.
was very close to hitting the year. So it definitely happened the beginning of this year because last year was so much fun. It was like my first Thanksgiving, my first Christmas,
Right.
my first everything with the podcast.
Mhm.
And I had so many ideas for it that I was just excited. I didn't have like a stunt in ideas.
Mhm.
But then once the new year hit, I'm like, oh, So we start the year all over again. What do I do? Like,
Right.
what else do I talk about? I'm going to talk about, like, I don't want to talk about New Year. Everybody's like, oh my God, New Year, new me. I'm like, no, same old me, just older.
Right.
like,
Right.
like, I don't know what else to talk about. I don't want this right now. So
Mhm.
for like a good 2 weeks, I was just like, I'm going to sit back and relax. But I did
Yeah.
enjoy people reaching out saying, hey, are you okay? What's going on? You
Mhm.
didn't put out an episode, because that made me feel like, wow, people are really listening. And
Right.
that's what brought me back and gave me
Mhm.
kind of like that spark where I was just like, okay, you're tired. You just got to figure it out, pace yourself, because people are actually listening to you.
Right. Yeah.
So you're whatever you say, somebody is resonating with somebody,
Yeah.
and that's what you're doing it for. So that's kind of like what picked me back up and was like, all
Mhm.
right, I just have to figure out a good schedule and pace myself, because if I stop, I'm going to be doing a disservice, because people like
Right.
my stuff. So
Yeah. So, to follow up with that, when you do your podcast topics, do you do an outline or do you just a title and wing it?
I cannot do a title and wing it. I wish I could. Like if I was on a panel,
Mm-hmm.
or like if you just told me, hey, come up, let's just shoot the shit.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be different, because we'll be bouncing ideas off of each other
Right.
and
Right.
stuff like that. But when you do solo podcasts, for me, it's difficult, because you have to
Mm-hmm.
have some type of agenda. So it's
Right.
hard for me to just wing it off the dome. Um, so I do write. So I mean, I like to write. So I do write almost all my episodes out, only
Mm-hmm.
because I like reading, like where I'm gonna insert the jokes.
Okay.
I like really reading that stuff, and also because I don't know what that'll bring me in the future. Just having written podcast episodes where I might see some value in it, if I want to write something, a book or something on like how I created my
Right.
podcast, or so
Mm-hmm.
some kind of like self, like just biography or something. I feel like that'll
Mm-hmm.
come in handy. And also for memories too. Like I always tell my daughter, I'm like, listen, I'm gonna give you all these episodes to read, and you can see like how I
Okay.
developed them. And so I do it for, I do write them out for many reasons, but I also like order, like organization, and knowing
Yeah.
that what I'm talking about is going somewhere, because sometimes you could just go around in circles
Yeah. You
and not
can.
even catch yourself till it's too late and the episode's already released. And you're like, damn, I said that 7 times.
Right. Groundhog Day. Like really?
Right. Like, oh, okay. 7 times, Michelle. Okay, girl. You must have felt
Yeah.
really passionate about that.
Have you ever so how, like when you do your outlines and stuff like that, do you keep them somewhere so that you can be like, I already did that topic.
Yeah, I keep them in my notes.
Okay.
Like, so I do go over, and I also make sure, like, if I'm thinking about something that feels like deja vu to me, I always
Hmm.
go back to all my notes. I'm like, did I talk about this? Did I
Yeah.
talk about something very similar to it? So I do like going back to my notes and just kind of comparing and saying, okay, no, I didn't talk about this. Or it might sound similar, but the twist I have now is way different. So I can talk about it without sounding, repetitive.
Yeah. 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 I keep in Google Notes and
Right.
keep them all there. And when we do an episode, I cut it out and I put it in the old episode one and
And that's it. You're
burn it.
done. Burnout.
Burn out.
No, the burnout is real. It's a lot of work. It
It is.
really is. Like it's not just sitting down in front of a mic and talking and saying, "Okay, my job is done." No, it takes so much.
Yeah, it does. It really does.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the question I've been waiting to throw out there, the infamous Lakomai.
Bloop. Oh yeah, that's the one.
How did this interesting character, alter
That's the
ego, personality
sis.
come about, come to life? Where the hell did she come from? Because
That's the
every time I
sis.
hear Lakomai, I just lose my shit.
Listen, because she's crazy, yo. Okay, so La Comay. All right, so I told you, born and raised in the Bronx, and I was surrounded by a lot of Dominican, Puerto Rican, and
Mhm.
Black women. And for some reason, no matter where they were, if they were Black, if they were Dominican, if they were Puerto Rican, to me they all sounded exactly the same. And it was that little lady by the window, because it was all of them. Who they'll tell you who got shot, who did it, where day they was, where they was standing, what kind of gun they had. And I'm just like,
Oh
how do
my
you guys
God.
know? Go to work. What do you mean? And these were the women who led, like the block. Like everybody
Yeah.
knew who all these women were. So for me, in my mind, they all became this bubblegum of a people. And to me, they're all like the same. I'm telling you.
Oh
So
my God.
I clearly remember I had neighbors. Okay, I went to on each floor in my mother's building. We had four apartments,
Hmm.
and on our floor we were all Dominican, but then
Hmm.
upstairs they were all Puerto Rican and one Mexican family,
Oh
and then
wow.
right above us they were like two Puerto Ricans and then two Dominicans. So between like the second, third, and fourth floor, we would all like hang out and throw
Hmm.
hallway parties. What is that? I don't even know. We would throw hallway parties and fire escape parties. So we would
Wow.
travel to each other's like fire escapes and
Yo,
party. Yeah,
that's taking it back to when I was
thank
little.
you. But this is what I'm telling you. And this is how La Comay was born. Because being a young girl living in the Bronx and having this like lifestyle, I was privy to all these conversations that I should have really
Right.
been minding my business about.
Uh-huh.
And that's how she became a person, because it was always, for me, these conversations were always like negative or bashing, and like, oh my god, and oh my god, can you believe he did this, and oh my god, can you believe that so and so son did so and so that. So I'm just like, no, like she came out of the kind of like this negativity, and I made her into like this positive person who just loves to gossip, who loves to
Right.
know everything that's going on in the block, who knows everything that's going on in the block, always has a story. Because you talk to any one of my neighbors, they always had a story. Oh, let me tell you what happened with that one down the block, and now she's
Ah,
pregnant, and it's just like, damn, she's pregnant. Like, how do you know that? You never go to work, girl. Like, how do you
right.
know?
Oh my
Right, like,
God.
yeah, and and then because a lot of these women were also like single mothers, they would kind of join together, and like some of them would take us to school. Like my mom would take their kids to school, so we were
Mhm.
all kind of like always hanging out together. So we had, in my opinion, I had like a lot of female like mothers, I would say,
Right.
and to me in my head, my entire life they sounded like La Comay. The only thing is she's just like more positive. I'm gonna mind my business, but I'm gonna tell you how it is because you can't tell me. Like it's just like,
Right.
girl, like make up your mind. Who do you want to be? Who do you want to be? La
Right.
Comay is everything. She's everyone. She's basically the Bronx for me growing up.
Oh
That's how
my
I
God.
interpreted the Bronx growing up. And that's how I created her. I was like, and the thing is, I also like doing, I haven't done like official voiceover work except for like Miss Ty. I've done some stuff
Hmm.
for her. And that's just like one of my many talents, I want to say. Like, I'm not going to say I'm like the master at voiceovers, but I also wanted to add that part or that
Hmm.
element into my podcast because it's who I was. And I told myself, if I'm going to podcast, I'm going to put who I am out there because this
Hmm.
is the creative side of me. So with all of that, Black Omai was born.
So is Lakomai going to be on the screen YouTube or has she already?
I want her to, so I'm currently working on something like that.
Okay. Okay.
And I think it's going to be all her, but I don't think it's going to, like, she's going to take over YouTube. I think
Right.
she'll be kind of like every month, instead of having like two episodes, I'll have like three where one is just solely La Comay, and
Okay.
it's like ridiculous. So I am thinking about that. I kind of started doing it on YouTube,
Hmm.
like on IGTV. I
Hmm.
did do like a lot of skits that I like edited myself and I wrote myself and I did them all by myself. Like I recorded everything by myself. I did all on my own. And then I realized, I was like, okay, IGTV is cool, but just gonna think on like the grander scale,
Right. Yeah.
because like I'm tired of just fighting for these views. I'd rather
Hmm.
throw it up on YouTube where people all around the world will eventually just fall on it and be like, oh, this is fun. There
Yeah.
you go, I got a view, instead of whatever subset you get put into
Hmm.
Instagram.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
You
but
know, for Black people, Lakomai is like Pearl from 227.
she's crazy, yo.
Always in the damn window telling people's
Always,
business. Oh
always,
my
always.
God.
And then she always has her little nail in her mouth because she's always like, oh, like what's
Hmm.
going on? And
Right.
that's how I envision her. If you see her out the window, know that your mother's gonna know who you was making out with on the block.
Exactly.
Because La Comay is gonna tell, And then she's gonna see and be like, "Oh my god, you got in trouble. I don't even know why. Because of you,
Right.
sis. You told on me. What you
And
mean?"
then try to slither some details out of you so she can run back and tell again.
Exactly. Like, is that your boyfriend? Oh my God, he's so cute. You guys want to come over? And then as soon as you leave, listen, she was in my house with her boyfriend, but I'd rather see her in my house than in the street. And she
Right.
always got to put a twist. I'd rather see her in my house than
Um,
in the street.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's
yeah.
her.
All right, so one more question. Was there or is there a specific message that you want to put out for the world to like gravitate to, or that you want to share?
Yeah, and I think it's the same message that I say. Like, I say this all the time. Like, if you like, consistency is key. If you're thinking about anything, whether it's podcasting, whether it's anything in your personal life, work, I don't know, whatever it is that you're into, because people are into different shit. If you really do want to, just go for it, because the longer you sit back and you think, well, I don't think it's going to work, who's going to follow me, who's going to like this, listen, there's somebody for everybody out there. And that doesn't only go for, like, men and women, that goes for
Right.
like content. There's
Yeah.
something that you do that somebody's going to look at it and say, I can relate to this, I know
Mhm.
about this, I went through this is funny. Or even if they hate it, they're going to hate to love it,
Right.
like,
Yeah.
and sometimes it be like that. It's like, oh, I hate
Yep.
this so much, but I can't stop watching it, and I don't
Mhm.
know why. So just, keep, don't stop. Keep going at it. Burnout is real for anything you do
It's
in life, even
real.
at work. But if you love what you do, you stop, give yourself a break, pick back up, and keep it going, because it's worth it.
You're right, right. So that's what it is. Thank you for coming on and spending this time with me, the King and I Life podcast. So definitely shout out where people can find you.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. And you guys can find me on YouTube. You can find me on Instagram at Its.Mi.Chelle. You click that link in my bio. My podcast platforms, it's all on there. If you want to listen to me, just audio, you don't want to see this cute little face, you can just you can just go to any podcast platform and press
Oh,
play, you follow, like, share, subscribe, rate, review. I don't know what else. What else do people do?
uh,
Tune
I
in,
don't know. Tune in,
right?
whatever it is,
Yeah.
But hey, it was a great conversation with It's.Mi.Chelle.
Yes.
Very
Thank you so much
animated,
for
very
having me.
lovable person. A joy to listen to, a joy to watch. Like she said, go check her out. You're gonna fall in love with Comai if you have that type of personality. I love
Bye.
Comai. Um,
Thank you. You
yeah,
do. You do.
yes,
Don't worry. She loves you right back.
yes. But yeah, that's what it is. King and I Life podcast. Thanks for joining us, and you'll catch us on the next one. Peace.
Peace.
All righty.